Talk louder.
She was a godly woman.
A godly
she
woman.
loved her mother-in-law very much.
I'm thinking it's like a love story, right? If Savannah and Juliana read it, where are they going to go? They're going to go, oh, am I right? That's them. That's the way. Oh, that's a love story. Oh, you know, that's true. Every woman, they see a puppy on the side of the road. Oh, they got just that's what they do. Well, I got another side to this story. Yeah, it is not all about a love story. It is, but not all about a love story. And Brenda's correct. She was a godly woman later on. What was she when they met?
Moabite.
A Moabite. Now, what is a Moabite?
Descendant of Lot.
Descendant from Lot is illegitimate
By his
son.
daughter.
By his daughter, illegitimate son, yeah. The Moabites. And it said that the Moabites were the enemy of Israel. And it's also stated that God would not allow them to marry a Moabite. And if they did, they wouldn't be allowed in the temple even to the 10th generation. Now that kind of twisted me up a little bit, because who is Ruth kin to in about four generations down? King David. She's the great-grandmother or grandmother, the great-grandmother of David.
Great.
And he definitely went to the temple. He definitely was somebody important in Israel's history. So I got a little, I said, how do you make that work in your head? It just, they had theories. You can read almost anything you want to find. But this guy here is, hold that back up. There we go. His name is John Currid, Currid, and it's commentary, and it's the Gospel Coalition. That's the name of the website. Anyway, he had this whole thing, 12 pages, and I'm going to start reading this, and then we'll stop and make some comments. Okay, and he brings it up right. He breaks it down verse by verse. Very, very good. So what do we know about this period of time right now? When Ruth began, chapter 1, verse 1, when are they setting this whole story up? When is it happening?
In the days of the judges.
The days of the judges. We just talked about a judge of Israel. His name was? Samson. And Delilah. Yeah, and this is later on. This is when they're in the middle of the judges. And what is going on? How do the Israelites act during the judges?
They do whatever they feel like it.
Exactly. That's exactly what they said. They did whatever's right in their own heart. And it's also a cycle. We talked about that, where they repent, God saves them, they go along a few years, maybe 40 years, and then they fall apart, they can start worshiping idols. God sends a country in there, takes them over, punishes them, they repent, they start over. It's just a back and around, like chasing their tail. This is the time that they're living. Okay, the opening words of the text: in the days when the judges ruled, provide the timing and setting of the story. We do know that of this period, the book of Judges ends with a statement in Judges 21, verse 25. They said, and they did whatever was right in their own heart. They had no king. It's just, well, I think this is okay. You do what I want to do what I want to do. It's very much like what we want to do today. You know, you believe how you want to believe. We'll both end up the same. Well, that's true. You believe what you want to, you worship God like you want, and I worship God like I want, we'll both end up in the same place. That's true. If we don't worship God like God wants to be worshipped, we'll both end up in the same place. That's like I made a comment one time, and you can see Greg's eye pop open, and you hear, wow. I said, there's no atheist in hell. And he goes, I can see it, I can read his face right there when I said it. When you get there, you believe. If they don't do what God said, they're going to end up in the same place. This is what they're doing. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It was a time of moral decay. Anarchy. No central political authority or spiritual focus. They have the judges, but how good a judge was Samson? A good example there of a strong, upstanding man, right? No. So this is the people that's judging the people. It's a big spiral, a downhill spiral. By the end of the book, we read the downright obscene stories, the people, the way they're doing things. Okay, now Ruth comes up right after this. This is like P.S. by the way. You know, this is what Ruth is at. Okay, although many Israel people lacked moral fiber, acted in line with the ungodly Canaanites, not everyone was behaving that way. Who is Ruth's mother-in-law? Naomi. Who is Ruth's father-in-law? Elimelech.
Yeah.
I can't even say his name.
Malon? No, that was her husband.
That was Naomi's husband.
Elimelech?
That's a twin sister. Sir.
I was gonna say, it seems like the judges, unlike the kings or the prophets, they just administered, they watched out for foreign adversaries. They administered judgment on issues, but they weren't really in the religious, they weren't making sure that religion was primary on the minds of the.
So that was an afterthought, just, yeah. You return the cow you stole, and we're not gonna do that again, but never mind what you do in the temple. That's basically what they, yes. Okay, so now we have the timing, and the Boaz was an upright man. Ruth is an upright woman. Naomi and her husband, Elimelech, I've got that messed up, and I can't even say it.
Elimelech.
Yeah, that man. They're all, but they, Naomi and her husband, which I can't say, they leave Israel. I got around that, didn't I? They leave Israel because they have a famine. There's nothing to eat here. So what did they do? They went to Moab. Does that seem like the right thing to do?
No.
That's like we're not getting what we need here, so let's go over here where the enemies of Israel are, and they won't bother us. And that's where we'll move. And they lived there for 10 years. That's like things get, what's the saying? When things get tough, the tough get going. Well, apparently he got going, but not the right way. I think that was a mistake on his part to take his family, 2 sons, his wife, and leave and go to Moab. But that's what he did. Okay, let's see. The family left Israel because of natural disaster. And it's also, if you look at Leviticus 26, 18 and 20, it says that God would bring disasters on Israel because of their unbelief. It's like the famine was probably God's thumping them in the head, say, hey, wake up. You know, I'm not going to do this forever. You can't be this way forever. You got to start acting right. So they leave Israel. They go to Moab. That's just a mistake. Okay, and they say, I don't know this for sure, but the commentary, you have to take you don't know how close they are, but he says the name Bethlehem means house of food. And that's kind of ironic. They leave Bethlehem because there's no food, and they go to Moab. I thought I would throw that in there. I don't know for sure that's true, but
I thought it was the word, what they used to call Bethlehem, Ephrat.
yeah, that's mentioned in the book of Ruth. Sir?
I would like anybody's input on this. In verse 21 of chapter 1, she says, Naomi says, I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Now, I know she's lost her husband and her 2 sons. Question is that all she's talking about? Or Did they leave? Because did they leave at the beginning of the famine while they had a lot? And should they had say, well, we've got what the Lord has provided us. Why would we go to Moab? What the Lord has provided us will get us through this famine. So the question really comes down to, what does she mean in verse 21? We went away full.
Okay?
For a woman of that age, Greg, would you think that she meant about having her sons who could earn a living and a husband who can earn a living? And that's kind of what fulfilled a woman's needs back then.
That's exactly right. That's going to come into play later on. Okay? Well, it's, yes, they went away full because they were upright citizens of God. Think about it, God's country. What better position could you be in? You might be hungry, but you're God's chosen nation. You walk and you come back, you're broken down. Yes, ma'am.
And on that note, even though it was the wrong thing to do to go to Moab, they still maintained their culture to the point where their daughters-in-law could see the difference between the cultures. It's just interesting that they understood how God wanted them to act, except for, it's just interesting to me how they were doing the wrong thing, but they did the right thing while they were doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to move to Moab, but I think it was a mistake. I think you put your family in a tough situation. You think about, that's like going to Jericho and living in Jericho, hoping the Israelites don't show up before I get out. Like Lot, he went to Sodom. And how did that work out? He was a godly man right till he walked out, but he was being tormented every day by the things he saw and the things he was subjected to. It's kind of like being in water right up to here, and you can't tread water forever. You just barely make it. You put yourself in a situation, and I think that's what they did here. Okay, the family was in dire straits in verses 3 through 5. They lived under a famine. They came under Moabite authority for about 10 years. They were obviously affected by their circumstances, evident from the fact that the two sons married Moabite women. Okay, in disobedience to God's word in Deuteronomy 7, verses 3 and 4. Tragedy then struck because both her husband and her two sons both died. And Leo brought it up correctly. In that day and time, a woman was not expected to be a businesswoman, except maybe Delilah. She was a businesswoman and made money. But mostly, you're depending on your husband and your son or sons to take care of you. There's where both of them are gone. The husband and the two sons are both out of the picture. Now, the two daughter-in-laws, Ruth and, is it Orpah?
Yeah.
Oprah.
No,
Orpah. Okay. They are apparently versed enough in the Israelite religion and the way of life. They understand. We're in a tough, bad state here right now. This is not going to go good. What are we going to do? So Naomi decides, I'm going home. Why would she go home?
She's got relatives there.
Got relatives there? Okay, very good. Relatives. Yeah, I'm going. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to what Greg was asking about 21, I went away full and the Lord has brought me back empty. She had lost her husband and her two sons. So when she left her home, her heart was full. She had her husband, she had her two sons. But when she comes back, yes, she has her daughter-in-law, but she doesn't have her husband and her two sons. So as a mama, I would feel like you're empty. You don't have that anymore. Could it be a possibility that that's maybe, and not necessarily
I think that would play.
but just her heart's not full, it's empty. She's lost her, her husband and her two children.
Yeah.
My son
And
had
she's,
her sons.
and she's also feeling like she's being judged by the Lord.
Well, she said that because she said the Lord's hand was against me.
Testifies against me.
Her name
And
means
has
sweet.
brought calamity on me.
Yes. Her name means sweet. When she come back to Israel, she don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, which means bitter. I don't think she's bitter at God. It's just been a bitter life. That's what she told him to call her. Yes. So she's going to return to her family's inheritance. How does the inheritance work in Israel when they go into the promised land? They divide up the tribes. How did that work?
Didn't
Real good.
Not well.
They had 12 tribes. Each tribe got a section of the land in Canaan. That's the promised land. And each subdivision of that tribe, the clan, if you want to call it, each family got a section of that portion of the land. So that, and the land stayed in the family, did it not? And what was this year of the Jubilee? How did that play into it? Every 49 years, the property went back to the original family. They really never owned anything from it, and that shows back, it's not yours. God gave it to you, and He can take it away from you, basically. You know, they depended on God. They're showing God's still in control. So they really never owned it, but this is their inheritance. You know, if you sold the property to Mr. Smith over here, when 49 years, it's coming back to the family. And now she's been gone 10 years. Apparently, well, they didn't sell it before they left. She's coming home because she has property there. And she's also heard the famine's over. There's bread over there back home where I came from. God's kind of eased up on them a little bit. That's basically the way she's thinking. So we're going home, or I'm going home. That's her thinking. I'm going home. What does the two girls do?
they wanted to go with her?
I'm going with you. Exactly. Now, one of them is a little more dedicated than the other one, Ruth. And that's where everybody, oh man, what did she say when Naomi said, "Now go back home, go back
To your family, you go back to your people.
Right.
She said, no, you're my people.
Yeah, your God will be my God, and where you die, I'll die." That's a dedicated thing right there. Yes, and that shows that she knew something about Naomi's God, Yahweh, the Israelites' God, because she said, "Your God will be my God." The Moabites, they had their own set of gods, idols and stuff like that. They don't worship the God of Israel. They have their own idols. And there's a bunch of them. They don't have just one. So she said, "Your God, single, will be my God. I'm giving you up this other stuff." This is why she understood something. Something had been taught to her. Like you said, maybe it was the lifestyle that these girls saw. Or maybe they've been taught. I don't know. Maybe there was something, because I'm going to go out on a limb real far and say that maybe the two boys didn't fall real far from the tree. Maybe they had a little bit of a uprightness about them and chose wisely on who they married. Because you can make a mess of what you got by who you pick. And apparently they had chosen some girls from Moab that are definitely a cut above. I don't know. They're not Delilah by any chance. So yes, they're going home. Did I say Oprah? Yeah. We used to have a lady here named Orpha Tyndall. And a man got up and made an announcement when she was gone that day. She was sick, and he called her Oprah. And, so now I get my own self messed up. It wasn't, her name was Orpha. But anyway, yes, she goes back home. She tries, but Naomi convinces her, go back home. Why? What does Naomi say is not going to happen when we get back home? If you follow me there, what's not going to happen? what would be necessary?
That she can't have kids for them to marry one day.
Because that's what is expected. If there's brothers, the two brothers, and one dies and he's married, the other brother would take the first brother's wife and raise up a family for that brother's name. Well, the two brothers are dead. There's no third brother. So who are you going to marry? And that was called a Levirate vow, a Levirate law. And it had nothing to do with the Levites. It was Lever means father or brother in Latin. It's Levirate. And it means that you will take your brother's wife and raise up a family for his name. It wouldn't be your kid, basically. It would be your brother's family.
And we don't know when the two brothers died. It's interesting that I was trying to find out, Orpah and Ruth, who were they married to? We know the two brothers' names, but we don't know which one they were married to.
Nope. Don't know. I don't think it matters. But
Well, if they both died,
They
the
both
thing was that you wonder if they both died at the same time. Obviously, that's not part of the story, so it's just one of those things where
yeah.
the other brother who was alive couldn't take on his sister-in-law.
Might have died.
They might have died at the same time. I don't know. It just doesn't say anything like
It
that.
doesn't say. It is strange that the father died, the two sons died, and it sounded like they died pretty quickly together. I mean, close. It doesn't sound like it was one and then 10 years later the other two. So, no children. So here we have 3 widows, basically. But I don't think the Moabite people had the same take care of the widow situation as Israel did. So she goes back home. She knows she has family. She has an inheritance, family, property. She can take care of herself. But she can't take care of you girls because there's no son to do this. And then if I had a baby tomorrow, you're going to wait 20 years for him to get grown and then you marry? Which one of y'all going to marry? It's just not going to happen. That's why she's laid it out to them. It won't work. Y'all need to go back home. But Ruth was not going to be told no. She said, no, I'm going with you. The other one, she left. She went back home. No shame in that. That's just so.
It's interesting that Hebrew word there, when she saw she was determined, comes from the Hebrew word almatz, which generally means to be strong or brave or bold. Not, for instance, like she says, no, go ahead and go back, and one daughter goes back, and she doesn't. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, is Ruth just stubborn, or is she sentimental? But that word in the Hebrew is strong, brave. So I think that tells us something to the story of, it gives us insight, because there could have been other Hebrew words used in the original text. Why did she insist? And apparently, evidently, she was brave. It took some courage for her to stick with Naomi.
Because she is going to be in the same position that Naomi's in over in Moab country. You're by yourself, you have no husband, you have no inheritance, you're in a foreign country. It's just they're reversing roles. Yes, so that's a good point. She's got to be brave and determined. And here we go. We're going back to Bethlehem. So what happens when they get back to Bethlehem? How are they greeted? Mm-hmm. Well, when they walk into the city, and all the women go, "Is that Naomi?" And they said it could be taken 2 ways. Because we haven't seen you until, is that Naomi? That doesn't look like her. Or it could be, man, she's fell off the top real fast. That's Naomi. Yeah. It can be taken 2 ways. That was a question the women asked.
Well, she left for 10 years, so obviously they would have known her for having a husband and 2 sons, because the sons couldn't have been born after, or they would have been married. So they must have all been at least maybe 15 years old, maybe when they left. So they would have known her to have a family with 2 sons, which was great.
She come back by herself and one girl. And, yeah, that's, well, I say girl, there's a lot of the commentaries say that they think Ruth was 40 years old. So, I don't know, it doesn't say in the Bible. This is, a lot of this comes from the Midrash, the Jewish commentaries on the Old Testament part. So yes, they walk in and all the women are like, whoa, man, what's wrong with her? What happened to her? Man, look at her hair, look at her nails, just, man, the shoes don't match either. Just, I can hear them going down, tearing her apart.
Yeah, I think it was murmur. I think it was negative.
You're very, just wow. She walked out here and had everything. Look at her coming back, nothing. Yes. But Naomi's got credibility. She's got honor. She's got a lot. She's got a lot. And that's when she told the ladies, don't call me Naomi anymore, call me Mara, which means bitter, because God's hand has been against me. Well, you left God's property, you left God's inheritance to you. You turned your bait. I don't know. I'd go real far out and say they turned their back on God and walked away from God's protection and go somewhere else and take care of yourself. That's just, yes, God's been against me. Okay, the women arrived. Naomi told them, don't call me Naomi anymore. And then it says that Naomi and Ruth got into Bethlehem, came into Bethlehem right at the beginning of the harvest. The first grain of the harvest is usually barley. And then I think it would be wheat later. I think that's what this guy said. And it would last, and the first would have been about, beginning of the year, followed by the wheat harvest. The year of the harvest was rich. That's in verse 6 of chapter 1. They needed abundant workers. The famine's over. They got wheat and barley everywhere. We need people to get this stuff, get the harvest done. So there's been a big change in what the agriculture is doing. Okay. What does Ruth do to get food on the table?
She goes and gleans in the field.
Okay, what does that involve? She's gleaning in the field.
Picking up the residues.
Scraps.
Scraps.
Leftovers.
Scraps, yeah. And that was legal. That was a thing that God put in the law to take care of people that were poor. Exactly. So here, and they're poor. They have no husband, no sons, no income. Go out and get some food. And they said that, the way I read this commentary here, they said that she ended up with about 30 pounds of grain. Said it was enough to make, I think they said 600 slices of bread. That's like a lot of bread. We're not going to starve to death. We've got bread. We got water. They were in jail, bread and water. But yes, they said that this is a good thing. And she's going to go back tomorrow and do it again. This is where Ruth, where did you go? And she's telling her, be careful when you go out there. Why would she want to tell her, be careful when you go out there to these fields to glean the wheat and the grain? Why would she tell her to be careful?
Because of bad actors.
Bad actors.
She was a young woman, well, I don't know, 40, whatever, how old she was. I always picture her as a young woman, unattached, with no one to protect her.
Right. So
She had no protection,
she's fair game.
no connections.
Yeah, I know when I worked in the power plant and when I worked on the line crew, if a woman walked into the power plant, these guys act like they've never seen a woman before. Oh. You've probably seen it at work too, haven't you? I've never seen it. What? You see women all the time. Yeah, that would be, there's a woman out there in the field, she's picking up wheat, man. Yeah. And there's not everybody's honorable. They may want to try and take advantage of the problem here, the situation. So she ended up in a field owned by Boaz, which happened to be a near kinsman This is where the story gets real good. A near kinsman. And her mother-in-law, Ruth, tells her, you go back there tomorrow, because he's kinfolks. And Boaz took notice of her. And he asked his main man, the man that's over the field, basically, who's that woman over there? Oh, she's been here all day. She's taken a break one time, and she's been in the field all day long, picking that wheat up. And he kind of takes care of her, doesn't he? He said, well, you let her get over here behind the people. You leave a little bit extra so she might have to go hunt and peck. You know, you think about, well, there's a stalk there, and you might walk 20 foot before you find nothing. No, they're going to leave a little more there for her and make it a little easier on her. So she comes home and tells Ruth, well, Ruth said, where'd you go today? What field did you enter? A man named Boaz. Ah, that's our kinfolks. Yes, that's good news, sir.
Yeah, that Talmud or whatever, that I looked at him, he said that Boaz was actually the nephew of Naomi's husband. That's what it's
That's
saying.
what I've read.
But something about these, these gleaning. Gleaning wasn't that the product that you get or the stuff that you get from gleaning wasn't that scarce, because something that I found was interesting is that the reapers, when they came in, could not reap to the edge of the field.
Right?
So they left 1 or 2 rows. And the other thing is, in Deuteronomy, it says you cannot twice reap the same field.
You don't strip it clean. You leave a little bit.
So
for the poor people.
there was actually quite a bit of availability to the poor of that area.
Yes, and that's be like, okay, we got a strawberry farmer, he's finished. He picked them one time and opened the field up. Anybody wants to come in there and pick berries for free?
No, here they spray herbicides.
Right. We got to plant something else next week. Better turn that off. That thing just buzzed in my pocket. Do that again. So anyway, Boaz, that's our kinfolks. She said, you go back there tomorrow. But Naomi knows what works in the Israelite nation. She knows how things are supposed to be done. She knows the symbolism. She knows the different things that how a woman's supposed to act. A righteous, upright, honorable woman. So this is where it gets kind of crazy. It says here, let's see, in chapter 2, behold, she was in Boaz's, in his field. And he was not an absentee landlord. He was inspecting the work. He's out there watching things go on. Now, what I read is said that Boaz was more than likely around 80 years old.
I agree.
And so he's doing pretty good. He's getting out there after the guys in the field, and he's 80 years old. But the man that was over the field gave her a good report. She's been out here all day. She hasn't hardly taken a break. Boaz feeds her, tells her to go over there and with the workers and get some of that roasted grain. That was what they would probably eat for lunch. And they gave her enough that she didn't eat it all. She took some of it home to Ruth. That's another thing that she's thinking about her mother-in-law. I mean, what's the first thing you're going to think of if you're hungry? My belly, not hers. Well, she had enough to eat. She was satisfied. She took some of it home that night to Ruth. So yes. But she said that she had been in the field all day long, and at the end of the day, after she picked all this grain, she was in the threshing floor beating the grain out, which is, you had to take the husk off of it so you get the grain to eat. And she did that. So it's pretty late after dark time you get home. And yet she had the food for Ruth. She had brought home the grain for cooking bread later on. So she's taking care of business. She's doing good. Okay?
Well, it's just small stuff, but, I was reading something, I don't know, in this health place, this online, but they said that back in those times, history shows that the average worker ate between 2 and 3 loaves of bread every day. That's why Jesus used that as an example, not by bread alone, but they ate a huge amount of bread, and that was because grain was what they grew much of.
Yep.
And they relied on bread for their sustenance, a lot of bread. It's not the same stuff that we probably buy at Publix, but it's funny that that's what they were kind of living on, because I looked and all you needed was water and oil and grain, and you could make bread.
And you can just about get grain anywhere in the world. You think about that. They said, heard one time that they said that the fruit of the vine, grapes, they grow on just about every continent where people live. And bread, there's grain growing everywhere. You can make some kind of a bread. And that's two things right there. That's everywhere. You can get this if you want it.
I've heard that.
Yeah, so, well, anyway, Boaz takes care of her. And it's funny that she responds to Boaz's actions with great humility and surprise. Ruth uses play on words, said, "Why have you taken notice of me, a foreigner?" The expression of her wonder at the generosity of Boaz. Foreigners were those usually lived unnoticed and unrecognized. Ruth thus wondered why she was noticed by Boaz. She was further startled when he would speak to her so kindly and comfort her, although she was merely a servant, and not even one of his servants, just a servant. And this shows her humility and her honesty. And it said that Boaz pronounced a kind of a blessing on her when he said that let me see, recognize the Lord, she has come. He described her relationship to the Lord as under whose wings you have come to take refuge. You know, that's where we sing songs about being on eagle's wings, lifted up. This is one of the sayings they would have used, and said that it's used in metaphors in the Old Testament, people belonging to God and under his care. And he's telling her, you have come under God's care. So he sees something.
And it wasn't that they weren't prejudiced. She's called, what's that word, Moabitess?
Yep.
She's called that 4 times in the first couple chapters.
Well, she's a Moabite, and
So they knew who she was, and that wasn't their culture was not a big acceptance of outsiders like that.
Not really. Yes, ma'am.
And also he had heard about all that she had done for her mother-in-law since the death.
Well, yeah.
And so she had.
And they haven't been in town very long.
Yeah, she had a good reputation.
And it may be she knew what they knew, the town people. Bethlehem might have known what went on getting there. Because the Bethlehem trip going from Moab to Bethlehem was a 3 or 4 day trip at the best. And, Naomi said, go home. No, I'm not going home. I'm staying with you. And these people seem to have already heard this. Good news travels fast.
And Naomi, some of her old friends, she might have said, this Ruth is unbelievably kind to me.
Yep. Okay, so she gleaned, returns from the field. She tells Naomi who she met. And Naomi knows, I know that man. That's her husband's brother's son, basically nephew. Yes. And he is considered a kinsman redeemer. And the word for that is Goel in Hebrew. And Goel means they had different things the Redeemer would be responsible for. There are 4 things. He was to buy his kin out of bondage, usually brought about when someone went into debt and indentured themselves to another Hebrew. Okay, they would buy them out of bondage. He had the duty to buy back tribal land that a relative had sold. Okay, that's where Naomi came back. Well, I've got inheritance back there, but she gets home, she's going to have to sell the property to get by. Okay, he was to perform the Levirate law by marrying a widow in the family who had no male heirs to produce offspring for the dead husband. Okay, that's another thing that he would be a redeemer, a kinsman redeemer would be required to do or expected to do. He was to avenge the blood of a relative. That's where the blood avenger, that was another thing that a redeemer would be responsible for expectations of him to do. So that's the four things right there. And this is Boaz. This is the next, well, he wasn't next of kin. There was one more closer to him. Okay? The concept of redemption by Goel, which is a redeemer, a wonderful picture in Scripture of God's work for his people. The term Goel was used for God interceding on the behalf of his people in Job. The exodus out of Egypt was a great redemptive act of the Old Testament, wherein God redeemed his people from bondage. In the New Testament, Jesus is the Goel, the Redeemer. And that's where it kind of like I went, oh, I never thought. This is the part of the story, which we're out of time already.
So Boaz is the type and Jesus is the antitype.
Exactly.
Here we
So
we have.
I'm gonna mess up my Wednesday night lesson right now and tell you, Ruth's not the hero of the story. Boaz is. He's the one, he is the Redeemer. He's the one that took it upon himself to do what the other kinsmen wouldn't do. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, well, that's what I was about to say was he didn't do it out of obligation either.
No, he's not next to kin.
Yeah, he didn't do it out of obligation. He did it because he saw something in her that she was dedicated to. Boy, she was trying. She was.
It describes her as a worthy woman.
Right.
That's a big word right there. Yes. So yes, he is going to be the Redeemer. And what it says in the Bible, if a person won't redeem his kin's widow, basically, what would require to get him off the hook? Pretty gross. She would pull his sandal off
Spit on.
and spit in his face. There, you have your sandal back now. Now we're done. But Boaz didn't do that. Boaz took his sandal off and gave it to the guy. This was another thing saying, okay, this is between us, this is settled. You're saying no, I'm saying I will. But there was no spitting. That would have been the woman's place. You won't redeem my family? Pooey on you. Yeah. Exactly.
Isn't she one of the, I was trying to remember, but isn't Ruth one of the few Gentiles that's in the lineage of Christ?
Yes, yes. I think there's 2 or 3.
Because of her marriage to Boaz, yeah, I think.
She married Boaz, but she became the great-grandmother of David, which was,
In the lineage of Christ.
the lineage of Christ. And there was Tamar, and there was one, Rahab. You call her Rahab. The person out of Jericho was Jericho. Yeah. She was named in the lineage also. The women, I think all 3 of them are Gentiles.
Wow.
But I don't think it's about being a Gentile here. It's about being a God-fearing person and a Redeemer. That's where we're going to pick up Wednesday night. Thank you.